Welcome to the Success Hive. I'm your host, Jesse Vos. Today we have a special guest, Greg Gilbert. I have known Greg for several years and have been blessed to call him a friend, mentor, and colleague. I want to welcome Greg Gilbert from Exit Real Estate Professionals Network and the Legends Real Estate Partners for joining us today. Welcome to the Hive, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
We're blessed to have you. So today, Greg, on our podcast, we're blessed to have you. It's actually our first podcast show, and we're going to do multiple series, and we're excited that you're our first guest. And so we'll have a few questions and discussions, and our first question for you is, what is one thing you had wished you known before you began your career, in this specific career?
Great question. I think, looking back over the time I've been in the real estate world, I think I wish I would have known that everybody I know was not going to choose to do business with me. That was a hard lesson for me because I figured all my friends and family would be happy just because they were my friends. Obviously not the case once you get started.
That's true. I've experienced that myself too. Some of the closest people that you know either forget that you're in real estate, or maybe they're just uncomfortable having you represent them because maybe they think we might know too much personal stuff.
I've had personal friends that were afraid to compromise our relationship in a business sense, but at the same time, what they didn't realize is they were compromising our relationship because that's how we feed our families.
Absolutely. Very true. All right, Greg, leading on to our second question for today, what is one of the biggest failures that you've had, and what did you learn from it?
Wow, where should I start? I've got lots of failures, but I would say probably the biggest failure was when the market crashed back in 07, 08. I had good 5-6 plus developments that went bankrupt because the lenders wouldn't lend. And, at the time, it was catastrophic. It was devastating, not only to my personal life, but professional life was completely wiped out. But what you learn is keep moving forward. And it served me well in those times of crisis where it seems like there's no end, like it's just terrible. If you keep moving forward, even in small steps, those relationships that we made along the way paid for the rest of my career, and it's made my life so much better.
Wow, I can't imagine. Obviously, I wasn't a part of that 2007-2008 economy crash, but I can imagine those hurdles were very difficult. But being persistent and strong and staying focused, moving ahead, you got out of that.
And it sounds so easy, like just keep moving forward, but all that is just every day, just getting up and doing something.
Staying positive.
Absolutely. Positivity is key to everything. That I've learned that the hard way because I'm not always the most positive. I'm probably pretty cynical, actually. But just putting one foot in front of the other every day, even if you don't feel like you're doing anything, getting up and making a little effort, it'll make a huge difference, especially when you feel like you've got a lot of conflict.
Wow. All right. So in your career, I'm sure this has probably been one of the most asked questions of you, and I could be wrong, but what would be your advice for someone wanting to pursue the same career or similar to yours?
Don't do it. It's a great question. I don't know that I would encourage anybody to do it the way I did it. They can obviously learn from my mistakes because there have been many. But the thing that I learned when I started in real estate is I started watching the people around me that were doing things that I wanted to do. And I gravitated toward those people, and I started asking questions. And I got to a point where I could do the things I wanted to do. And one of the things I learned early on is I wanted to be a developer. And the way to do that is just ask a lot of questions, be curious, and go to seek people's advice that are doing the things you want to do. Don't be afraid.
That's some good advice for sure. I mean, real estate can definitely has its hurdles, and just like any career has advantages and disadvantages. But it takes a strong person to do real estate for sure. I mean, looking back in my time in it, a real estate agent really has to prepare for the future, and you close one deal, you can't go blow that one deal because you've got to feed yourself the next month until your next deal. And
real estate's a very hand-to-mouth business until you can get past several hurdles, and the development world is very similar to that. But the similarities being this in the business world is you always have to be prepared for the next deal, and you always have to keep going, and you always have to keep asking, you always have to keep pushing, you have to be very persistent, and this is not a business for the timid.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. What are your best resources that have helped you along the way?
That's a pretty broad question. I think the biggest thing is my relationships. When I first started in real estate, we didn't have the internet, and we didn't have everything at our hands available to us by laptop or anything that way. So we always had to go ask questions and make those relationships firsthand. And I would encourage anybody, regardless of what your resources are, go make those relationships in broad fields that relate to real estate, whether it be attorneys or register of deeds or anything of those things. Those relationships come in invaluable for the rest of your career.
Absolutely, and it's a lot like what you're saying is creating relationships, planting the seed, building your network of people, which will help you grow as well.
You said it much better than I did, absolutely.
No, I think you did very fine. So, Greg, this one may be a little personal. Could you tell us 3 people that have been the biggest influence in your life?
Oh, wow. Yeah. My father, obviously. Of course, I don't. In a typical family, I don't know how that works. I don't know what typical means, but in my family, if I ever wanted to be coddled, I wanted to feel good about something in my life, I always called my mother. But if I always wanted good, solid advice to know where I stand, I'd always call my dad, and he would let me know where I stand real quick. And I found that to be great in my business career, because there's always times that you're questioning where you stand and what you need to do, and the sooner you can get to the facts, the better you can make good decisions. And my dad was a good litmus for that for me. Another person that I would say was a huge influence was my godfather, who was he was a local judge here, and well respected, very high ranking government official. But people were so intimidated by his title, and he taught me something very early on in my life that served me well. Is people are just people. And he said, forget their title. He said, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. And that served me so well to try not to be intimidated for people with much more success or different positions. And it's helped me get to barriers I otherwise wouldn't have learned.
Right.
Third person, boy, that's going to be tough. I've had so many great relationships in my life. I'll have to get back to you on a third. I don't know how I'm going to narrow that one down, but
it's a hard for sure.
It is.
All right, Greg, could you tell us one myth about your profession or in the field that you are that you can debunk?
Boy, that was out of left field. That we don't do anything for our money. Everybody thinks that we put a sign on the yard and get big fat paychecks. What they don't realize is the education and the background and what we have to do to get to that point. And putting a sign in the yard is a really easy thing to do, but it's all the work that goes on behind the scenes that people don't understand. The classroom hours, the hours outside of the classroom, studying our industry and making sure we do the right things for our clients is a big myth.
I have to agree with you. I've heard that too, is that real estate agents, all we do is stick sign in the yard and get a big check, like you said. But to expand on that, of course, all the education and the training, but even with the hot market that we're in, we still have to advertise. We do way more than just put it in the MLS.
Well, absolutely. Then you have all the systems you have to put in place, the marketing you have to pay for. Of course, we're self-employed, so we have to pay taxes. We have to pay our companies. There's so many things that go on down the line till we actually get to a paycheck that they just think we're just making gobs and gobs of money for doing nothing. And I know not everybody can say this, but I tell my clients when I go to list a house, I said, you're not paying me just to list your house. You're paying me for 23 years of experience. And there's not a price tag you can put on that.
Absolutely. Definitely have a lot of experience for sure. All right, Greg. So if you were to step in my shoes, what would be one question you would ask yourself?
That's a pretty simple question for me. Is why?
Great.
Why do you do what you do? Why real estate? And I've asked my own self that question a lot of times, and there was times that I thought about getting out of real estate, but I kept coming back to it. And simply the why is because of the relationships. I've been able to meet people from all walks of life, all over the spectrum of from professional to farmer to boardroom to in between, and I wouldn't trade that for any amount of money.
That's a great question and answer, and it is very important for people to know their why and understand why they do what they do. So that's a great explanation of your why. All right, Greg, why don't you tell us something about yourself that most people don't know?
It's a great question.
And it could be career related. It could be personal. It could be anything about yourself that, even if it's deep, we want to hear.
I'm left-handed. I guess I would say something most people don't know that aren't real close to me is that I was born with a genetic disease called Alport syndrome, which overall doesn't mean anything to most people, but for me it caused kidney disease, which caused kidney failure, which I had a kidney transplant when I was 25 years old.
Wow.
So been a lifelong battle of kidney disease, which, as you know, right now I'm on dialysis and I need a new kidney.
Yes.
So I don't really wear that on my sleeve much, but I do dialysis 3 days a week. So I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning 3 days a week to have treatment and get to work by 9:30.
Wow, that's a lot to go through, and you've been dealing with that for many years now, for sure.
Since I was 13.
Wow. And if we do have anybody watching or listening, there's probably criteria for people that may want to be tested to see if they're eligible to donate a kidney to you or anybody. There's procedures in place for that.
There are.
And of course, at the end of our show, we will post information about how to contact and all that stuff.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Greg, what is one thing that keeps you up at night, if you have one thing?
Boy, that is a broad question too. You got all of the questions today. What keeps me up at night? I think the only thing that I could answer that with is making sure that I'm doing the right things for my clients and that I didn't forget some detail every day, because there's so many details that are constantly flowing. I just want to make sure that I've got them all down in my head so I can get them done the next day.
Absolutely. I've been there and done that, and currently have things that keep me awake at night. And in the real estate business, it's important to, I found, also take down notes, but I still lay in bed and I think about, oh gosh, did I do that, or did I do this, or did I do that contract right, or did I meet the deadline? So in real estate, in general, there's so many flowing parts, and it just keeps you awake. And we want to make sure that we're taking care of our clients to the best of our ability. And so sometimes it's a struggle.
It is. And I don't know about you, but I'm a note taker at times. But then I forget to go back and read my notes.
Yes, I'm the same way. I have several notebooks going, and I write in them, and then I forgot to go read what I wrote. Greg, our name of our show is Success Hive Podcast. Obviously, it has many reasons to me why I named the show that. But for you, the word success, can you describe to me what that means to you?
Yeah, I think I can. I think that early in my career, I thought it was big houses, fancy cars, just lavish things. And the older I've gotten and the more business I've done, I try to think about what does that really look like to me. And I can tell you real simple. It's my friends and my relationships that I've made along the way. Completely an invaluable asset to me. And it's what keeps me going every day.
Absolutely. Think much alike. It's not always about making the big bucks and buying the big cars and big houses. It's exactly what you said. It's creating the relationships and friends and family and having a close network of people. That to me also is success for sure.
Yeah, there's just something you can't put a price tag on.
Absolutely. Greg, we're going to end our podcast show today with one last question before we give our audience your contact information. But we want to give our audience a takeaway. What would that be for them?
I think the takeaway would be no matter what walk of life you choose to walk in, walk boldly. And don't be afraid to hear the word no and keep moving forward.
Wow, that's powerful. All right, Greg, we really appreciate you being on our Success Hive podcast today. It's a blessing that you are with us. We want our audience to know who you are and how to get a hold of you. Obviously, you're with Exit Real Estate Professionals Network and the Legends Real Estate Partners. How can they get a hold of you?
Couple ways. My email address is just greg@legendspartners.com, or my mobile is 865-805-0500.
Fantastic. And you have a website too, right?
I do. It's www.legendspartners.com.
Fantastic. And I noticed that you guys recently rebranded, and the name and the logo looks fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
We're excited.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.